Good evening and welcome to the October 20th meeting of the Mayor and Board of Trustees of the Village of Flossmoor. Just a couple reminders before we get started tonight. This meeting is being broadcast via Zoom for the convenience of those who are unable to make it in person. I will call for public comment from the folks who signed in on our sign-in sheet. When you are called, please come up to the podium, state your name and address. Please direct your comments to the public body at large and not a single member of staff. Also act with decorum and please limit your comments to 5 minutes per person for a total public comment time of 30 minutes. The time is 7:03. Clerk Porter, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Daggett.
Here.
Trustee Dorsey.
Here.
Trustee Lofton.
Here.
Trustee Mitros.
Here.
Trustee Mustafa.
Here.
Trustee Rogers.
Here.
And Mayor Nelson.
Present. Thank you so much. We have a quorum. First up, we've got a proclamation declaring October 2025 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So I'd like to ask if Renee Basic would join me at the front. Basic, I'm sorry. Oh, he got me. I know. I've got 4 kids. I'm used to being corrected. It's good. It's good. You keep us honest. Oh, these are for you. These are bracelets that one of the neighbors made, Maddie. She has a bracelet making business, and they're beautiful. In celebration of your breast cancer story and your survival, you are a fighter, and thank you for being here tonight to read this proclamation with me. Whereas during National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we stand with the courageous women and men who have been diagnosed with breast cancer and honor those who have lost their battle to this terrible disease. And whereas, according to the American Cancer Society, breast cancer is the most common cancer in women in the United States, except for skin cancers. Breast cancer accounts for 1 in 3 new female cancers each year. An estimated 316,950 women and 2,800 men will be diagnosed with invasive breast cancer in 2025 in the United States. And whereas the National Breast Cancer Awareness Month program is dedicated to increasing public knowledge about the importance of the early detection of breast cancer and prompt treatment, which can significantly reduce the suffering and deaths caused by this disease. And whereas in recognition of the fact that mammography and x-ray of the breast is the single most effective method of detecting breast changes that may be cancerous long before physical symptoms can be seen or felt, and whereas cancer touches so many families across the country, including ours, it is up to all of us to continue fighting for a cure and to ensure that every American has access to the quality care they need. And whereas this month, Flossmoor joins all those who are battling breast cancer and all types of cancer, who have lost their lives to this disease, their loved ones, and all dedicated healthcare workers in spreading awareness, committing to public education, and embracing hope for better diagnoses, treatments, and a cure. Now, therefore, I, Michelle Nelson, Mayor of Flossmoor, do hereby proclaim October 2025 as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month in Flossmoor, Illinois. And I call upon the women of Flossmoor to speak with their doctors and healthcare providers to learn more about breast cancer. And I urge all women and their families to get facts about mammography. Dated this 20th day of October. Thank you so much for joining us. Also, Renee and her family, Keith is here tonight. They have, and her son, good to see you, Spencer. They have this incredible haunted yard display that they have on Western Avenue at their home. It's all free, but they take in donations for an anti-bullying campaign. So I just wanted her to take a moment to talk about the yard, what the hours are, when people can stop by, if you don't mind.
Of course. Yes, we would love to invite all of our neighbors and Flossmoor and Homewood and anywhere in the Chicago area to come and visit us. We are open now through Halloween. During the week, we have a little bit shorter hours. You check our website. And then on the weekends, we're open from 6:30 till 10. And we raise donations for an organization called Haunters Against Hate. And it is a LGBTQ plus focused group that raises funds for teen youth groups around the country. So we would love to see all the friendly faces here. Come see us at our yard. And don't forget to have your pumpkins checked for lumpkins.
That was so good. Can we do a photo real quick? Thank you so much, and congratulations on your battle and your victory. Appreciate it. Um, Also want to, oh, here, take this. Thank you. Also want to point out that we are very lucky. University of Illinois, I'm sorry, University of Chicago has a Flossmoor campus. And if you are on the fence, if you haven't ever gotten a mammography, they are super easy and fast. The facility is really nice. So if you're thinking about it, and if your insurance is good there, I hope that you will take this as your cue to go ahead and set up an appointment to get in there and get checked. Thank you. Next, I have a proclamation declaring October 20th through the 26th as Friends of the Library Week. Whereas the Friends of the Library raise funds that enable our library to serve as an outstanding community resource, providing the resources for additional programming, much needed equipment, support for children's summer reading, and special events throughout the year. And whereas the work of the Friends highlights on an ongoing basis the fact that our library is the cornerstone of the community, providing opportunities for all to engage in the joy of lifelong learning and connect with the thoughts and ideas of others from ages past to present. And whereas the Friends understand the critical importance of a well funded library and advocate to ensure that our library gets the resources it needs to provide a wide variety of services to all ages, including access to print and electronic materials, along with expert assistance in research, readers' advisory, and children's services. And whereas the Friends' gift of their time and commitment to the library sets an example for all in how volunteerism leads to positive civic engagement and the betterment of our community. And now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Michelle Nelson, do hereby declare the week of October 20th through 26th, 2025, as Friends of the Library Week in Flossmoor, Illinois, and urge everyone to join the Friends of the Flossmoor Library and thank them for their contributions to make our library and community a special place to call home. And we definitely appreciate all of their work. We weren't able to have any friends join us tonight, but we will make sure that they get a copy of this proclamation and understand how much we value them. Next, I have public present wishing to address the board. And first up, I have Mr. Warren Engelberg. Welcome. Hello.
My name is Warren Engelberg. I live in Flossmoor. Revolutionary reform is a very old topic, and the debate and struggle between reform and revolution is a very urgent topic for right now. Whenever societies are in stress, like now, and when basic problems have risen to the level of crisis, but which has happened often in the past, the issue called, do we respond by reform or do we respond by revolution, comes to the fore. It has resurfaced over and over again, and I'm talking about it with you now because by looking at how it's been in the past, we can understand how it has become yet again right now an issue for you and me. One point to start, and we could at many points, is American slavery. At the time of the American Civil War, in the middle of the 19th century, we had had a growing debate over the question of slavery. The southern states allowed, provoked, paid for, embraced, and endorsed slavery, and the northern states did not. And so for everybody, the issue became, what is our relationship to slavery? Now, of course, those who liked it and loved it, and particularly those in the South who eventually fought a civil war over it, were happy with slavery. They wanted to keep slavery, and we'll put them to one side. They weren't involved in a debate over reform or revolution because they weren't interested in social change. No, they were interested in holding on to what they had. But let's take a look at those who didn't like slavery and who wanted to do something about it. The reformers were people who reacted to slavery by wanting to reform it. That's why they were called reformers, and here's what they meant. Slaves should not be bought and sold in ways that separated parents from children, or husbands from wives, or siblings from one another. In other words, reformers said, okay, you could have a slave, but there are limits and there are rules. And there are things you shouldn't do and things you should do to make slavery less onerous and less awful. Slaves should be clothed properly. Slaves should be housed adequately. Slaves should be fed decently. These were demands reformers made. Then, who were the revolutionaries? The revolutionaries said you must go beyond adequate food, clothing, shelter, and the treatment of slaves. For the revolutionaries, the problem was slavery itself. And what they wanted was abolition, the end of it. Now, for most of the years leading up to the Civil War, most of the conversation was about reforming. Even in the North, reform was thought as far as you could realistically go. And those in the North who felt revolution and the end of slavery or the response were in the minority. They're remembered by names like John Brown and others who fought for and advocated the end of slavery. The reform or revolution issue came to a head when the North and the South went to war in the American Civil War. And very quickly, it became clear to the then President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, that to win that war, one important step was to end slavery. Lincoln took the revolutionary path. And the document that forever showed that was called the Emancipation Proclamation. It declared that slavery was illegal. The 13th Amendment of the US Constitution made slavery illegal in the US, anywhere and everywhere. Illegal, of course, except inside prisons. A very debatable decision, which was made that we could talk about if we had more time. But Lincoln's choice was a case where the revolutionary option was taken, and just so no one misunderstands, it was quite an extreme act. Remember that African American slaves were widespread in the American South. Millions of people had spent money to buy slaves. That was their wealth. They may have had a piece of land, they may have had some farm animals, but they also owned slaves. That's what slavery means. So the Emancipation Proclamation deprived Southern whites of their property without compensation. And the government didn't say, we're taking your slave away from you and here's money instead. No, no. They just said, your slave is now free to go. You don't own him anymore. And there's nothing legally you can do about it. But the Emancipation Proclamation made the law of the land was a revolutionary act. Next time, I'll jump to another example, next time we meet, where reformers won. And you'll see how that decision affects us now here in the United States. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Engelberg. Next, I have Miss Jackie Rithus. Welcome.
Thank you, Jackie Rithus, Flossmoor. I'm here tonight to tell you about the next Books Without Borders book club. The book is stamped Racism, Anti-Racism, and You by Jason Reynolds and Ibram Kendi. This book presents, in simple yet concise terms, the history and persistence of racist ideas in America. The authors ask us to be curious about segregationists, assimilationists, and anti-racists, and ask where we fall on that spectrum. Reynolds and Kendi gently and sometimes not so gently remind us that being an anti-racist is a lifelong process because racism doesn't disappear, it just adapts to new times. The authors captured the complexity and the sensitivity of the systems that keep racism in place. It's a thought-provoking read that is available locally at the Rock Shop in Homewood. So again, on November 11, we will gather in a safe space to listen, learn, and connect, and share diverse perspectives and meaningful dialogue, much like we did in September. At the suggestion of the Community Relations Commission, we are supporting another local business for this event. Beyond Borders Cafe in Flossmoor has generously agreed to host us for the evening. They have coffees and sweet treats available for purchase, and I was there today and saw that there's wine on the menu, so that's an extra pull to bring you to Beyond Borders. I hope we'll see you on November 11th from 6:45 sharp to 8 p.m. I'll report back to you sometime in November or December when I will then announce the book for our January meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Next, I have Miss Vanessa Smith. Welcome.
See, she didn't finish all her time. But anyway, my name is Vanessa Smith. I live on the corner of Hanover Lane and Dixie Highway. I've been there for about 5 years. And what brought me here today is because I have a question, and I'm hoping that the board or someone who's a part of the board can either give me an answer or guidance. The park that we have at Pheasant Trail Park, which is right on that corner, that is the only park in Flossmoor that does not have street signage at all. And I live right across from that park. My driveway ends at that park. And at some point, it did become an issue, a traffic problem, a pedestrian problem. And I think it was a safety problem as well for people who attend the park because so many children go. And when the parents, whoever let the children out of the car, sometimes they're on the street side, which is Hanover. But to be brief, I'm looking to get a sign that says no parking from my driveway to the corner. And the reason why I'm requesting that, because when cars park in front of my driveway, and yes, they are parking on the street. The park district has responded to some issues that I had with the park, and his name is Mr. Bowen. Yes, he did respond. And you probably may have seen some changes if you ride by there. But there's no designated parking for the park. So people who play tennis, because the tennis courts were updated and they're beautiful, and we have a great tennis community. And plus, we have a great playground area for the kids. This park is very well attended, but and I know the park district is a separate chain, but there is no designated parking on the park district property. So they are parking in the street. So when I come out of my driveway, and under the Illinois state driving laws, I'm supposed to pull into the proper lane of traffic. I cannot. I have to I'm coming here, I have to make a left turn, and I'm on the wrong side of the street. And on at least 2 occasions, because me and the other driver, cautious, were not speeding, we we had time to put on our brakes and not crash into one another. And having a street sign saying from a certain distance to the corner, that is throughout the village. And all the ordinances don't say, well, what requires it, but I know safety is an issue. And I do know that Dixie Highway is an issue because there's a camera at Dixie Highway in Homewood to catch the speeders and whoever is doing circles. So I'm seeking a sign that says from my driveway to the corner, because I live on the corner. And just to get that fence there, because the fence, you may have seen it, it's a big white fence. Just to get it to the corner, I had 3 hearings on traffic safety, pedestrian safety, and another safety matter to make sure that those issues would not be a problem. So I'm seeking a sign from my driveway to the corner. And personally, I think there should be a sign on the street because, the park district can do what they want. But people, when they're coming down, up and down Hanover, they didn't know the kids are playing there. And that's a common sign for a park. I don't know if it goes on a park or the street, I don't know. And the other one is actually when cars park on the street, there is an ordinance that says it needs to be 30 feet from my driveway, and it is not. So I've done all I can for the last 3 years, and someone suggested I bring it to the board. If you tell me what I need to do next, I'm not sure, because actually the ordinance does not tell me. I've read it backwards and forwards. I would like that sign from my driveway to the corner. And I'll speak with Mr. Bowen about what is the designated parking spot, because there's a sign there that says that people can be towed. It's a park district sign, but it says people can't be towed if they don't park in a designated parking area. And I'm asking, well, where are they supposed to park? The only other option is the street. And that street, Hanover Lane, is one of the narrow streets and Flossmoor. I guess we have some wider streets. This is one of the narrow streets. Um, but yes, I would like a sign saying the parking from there to the corner. And I don't want cars to park 30 feet from my driveway, which is already on the books. So you tell me, what do I have to do?
Thank you so much for coming here. It sounds like you understand the Park District is a separate government
Yes, ma'am.
entity. Let me talk with staff about any extra signage that we can put up, and what we're able to do or not able to do. You left your email here,
Yes,
which is
I did.
great. Thank you.
Mhm.
So I'll be able to reach back out to you to let you know what we're able to do. Also wanted to clear up just maybe a bit of confusion. The camera on Dixie, that's not to catch speeders. That's a license plate reader.
Oh yeah, that's what I
Okay.
mean. I do read the newspaper and everything you put out, which and email, which is excellent. Yes, I didn't know what it was for, but I know it's there at Holbrook. But speeding can be a problem. But it's a state highway, but that's another issue. But people do speed up and down Dixie.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'll talk with staff and I'll report back.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. And next I have Miss Andrea Perry. Welcome.
Andrea Perry. I believe no one is perfect. Even when one does their best, mistakes do occur. I do not expect our elected and appointed officials and hired village administration to be perfect. Mistakes will be made. What I do expect, however, and what I believe all Flossmoor constituents should expect, is that when mistakes are made, our governing and administrating bodies are forthright and own up to their mistakes, and definitely not pass their mistakes on to someone else or try to. There was an incident that occurred at the last meeting that disturbed me. The mayor began the last board meeting making a statement seeming to cast blame on a constituent for disseminating inaccurate or non-precise information. But in reporting this, she left out the most critical factor. The constituent disseminated inaccurate information because his actions were based on inaccurate information that had been furnished by the village on its meeting agenda. Then, during public comments, when Mr. Harris explained that his actions were based on the information provided to him from the village's public board meeting agenda, she continued to seemingly cast blame on him by saying that the full information was in the agenda packet. Accurate information contained in the meeting agenda packet has nothing to do with inaccurate information on the agenda. The reason inaccurate information was disseminated out in the community by Mr. Harris was due to inaccurate, not precise information disseminated to him by the village on its public agenda. Mr. Harris was not in the wrong here, as the mayor seemed to imply. In fact, this is what I believe should have been said. I first want to commend you, Mr. Harris, for your conscientiousness, prudence, concern, care, love, and commitment to making and keeping Flossmoor a great community to live in. When he saw an agenda item of great concern to the community, he took the time to research it, to disseminate this information out to the community, and call the community to action. For this, I thank him. It's unfortunate that the village inadvertently provided Mr. Harris with inaccurate information on its agenda. Even though the information was accurately stated in the meeting packet, it was not accurately stated on the published agenda. And for this, we apologize to Mr. Harris and to all constituents for the inconvenience it put you through. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perry. Next, could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there anything anyone would like pulled off?
Number 6, please.
Right, can I get a motion to approve items number number 3, 4, and 5 of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Clerk Porter, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Trustee Dorsey.
Yes.
Trustee Lofton.
Yes.
Trustee Mitros.
Yes.
Trustee Mustafa.
Yes.
Trustee Rogers.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. Can I get a motion to approve a resolution of the Village of Flossmoor, Cook County, Illinois, approving salary schedules for the fiscal year 2025, 2026?
So move.
Second.
Thank you so much. We have Village Manager Bridget Wachtel presenting. Actually, I'll start with Trustee Mustafa. What specific question do you have for Village Manager?
Now that I've been on the board couple 3 years, I'm noticing that there is a wording change that also changes the meaning of what we're being asked to approve. Last year, I brought this up also. It's on page 57 of 78. We are being asked to approve ranges. Every range, as I understand it, is being increased by 3.75%. We're not approving the salaries for any individual by name or any position, just the range. So I am again this year requesting that when we say in section 1, that the salaries for full-time and part-time employees effective on October 21st, 2025 are set forth on Exhibit A attached here to is hereby approved, which is grammatically incorrect. It should be that the salary ranges for full-time and part-time employees, not salaries. We're not approving anyone's salary, just the range. And this is something I brought up last year also. Because if we vote tonight to approve the salaries, we're essentially giving every position a raise.
So the documents in front of you this evening are a replication of what is in our budget that was approved May 1, 2025. As we talked about at our last meeting, our staff is proposing the creation of a second community service officer full-time position, and thereby reducing our part-time community service officer positions to 0. The attachments to this resolution reflect that. And as is our course, we established the ranges for those positions. The board would be approving the range for the CSO2 position, which was added to our full-time salary schedule. And to be clear, no salary increases across the board. Wage adjustments are occurring as of October 21st. The only thing that you're doing is adjusting reapproving the salary schedule as presented before you this evening. So thereby creating a second community service officer position.
So I agree with what you're saying, but that is not what section 1 says. It says salaries. It doesn't say ranges. And it doesn't say schedule. It says that the salaries for full-time and part-time employees. So I request that we just make that small change and put that the salary ranges, and then we will be doing exactly what you stated, Village Manager.
At that point, I'll have to defer to the village attorney of whether that's appropriate, relevant.
And I'm a little bit disappointed that we're doing this for a second year because I brought this up last year also. And it was approved last year also. No, I'm not speaking to you, attorney.
You are.
I'm just stating for the minutes that
Mhm.
this is the second year I've brought it up. And I would like going forward that we could attend to language so that we're not inadvertently approving what we're not intending to.
If that's something that the board wishes to pursue, we can definitely do that. We can make that adjustment here as noted. Do you have any other comments or questions?
I have a question, not a request for change, just a question for clarification. On the next page, 58, where all the ranges are listed, is it a 3.75% increase in every salary range for every position? I'm just asking for clarification. Because we do not have the prior ranges before us.
Again, the only adjustment to this document was the addition of the community service officer 2 position. So these ranges have not been touched since May 1, 2025.
That clarifies it for me.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from any other board members? Seeing none, Clerk Porter, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Trustee Dorsey.
Yes.
Trustee Lofton.
Yes.
Trustee Mitros. Yes. Trustee Mustafa.
Yes.
Trustee Rogers.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. We don't have any formal reports of our commissions tonight, but I want to give a shout out to the Green Commission for their outstanding work over the weekend. We planted 97 trees, bringing our total to just about 700 trees planted in the village since 2021. We had the football team from Homewood-Flossmoor High School along with their coaches, and that was after a late night game that they won the night before. We had the South Suburban Jack and Jill group there. We had AKAs there, lots of great neighbors. We also had our very own village clerk there, Cecil. Thank you so much. So great job to Public Works and to Stephanie and all who played a hand in organizing that very successful event. Also want to give a shout out to the Art Commission. If you want to buy some Flossmoor t-shirts or gear for Christmas, now's a good time to do it. The gear sale is open until Sunday night, so please go online. All proceeds from that sale benefit the Art Commission. Next up, action item, can I get a motion to present and adopt the fiscal year 2024-2025 audit?
Second.
Thank you so much. And presenting tonight, our Finance Director, Ann Navoa. And we also have a representative from Sikich. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Village Board. We are before you tonight to present the fiscal year 2025 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, or ACFR. The FY25 audit was performed by Sikich CPA LLC, and here to present the results is the principal on the engagement, Brian Lefevre. I'll pass the mic over to him in a moment. The village received the highest of opinions on the ACFR, which is an unmodified opinion. An achievement that came out of the FY25 audit for the village is, for the second year in a row, there's no management comments, meaning there were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in the village's internal controls. This is a phenomenal accomplishment for the village and specifically the finance department. Before I pass the mic to Brian to get into more depth of the audit results, I just want to give recognition and a few thanks. First, to the mayor and village board. You make my job very easy with your prudent financial decisions and thorough planning of major projects, so thank you. Second, to the village manager and other department heads and assistant department heads for helping the finance department with this audit. This is a joint effort, and without the professionalism and talented management staff the village employs, the audit would not have gone so smoothly. And last but definitely not least is to my team. The finance department consists of only 6 employees, all with vital roles of financial functions. The success of this audit is a direct reflection of their hard work and professionalism and support. A special shout out to my assistant director in the back of the room, Malia. Leave it up to us to launch a BSNA software conversion the week before the audit began. Apparently we thrive in chaos. So thanks for your hard work, Malia. I want to pass it over to Brian to go over the results of the audit.
Thank you and welcome.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Sikich, I'd like to thank the mayor and the members of the board for inviting us to present some brief comments on the report resulting from the audit for your fiscal year ended April 30th, 2025. The document that Ann references, the annual comprehensive financial report. This document has 3 sections, and those of you that are looking at hard copies of the document, those 3 sections are well, I'm colorblind, but they look like black tabs to me. So introductory, financial, and statistical sections. So the financial section contains all of the information required for an audit of the village under Illinois compiled statutes. What makes it a comprehensive report is the introductory and statistical section. So if you take that first black tab, or unless you all tell me it's a different color, we'll go to Roman numeral page IX or 9. And this is the award that the village received for its ACFR for fiscal year 24. It's from the Government Finance Officers Association, the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. And this is the 47th consecutive year that the village has received this award. It's known to be the highest level of financial reporting within the local government industry. So you should all be commended for your leadership in participating in this program. And obviously, as Ann mentioned, it's a team effort. So while a lot of folks think of the audit as being an audit of the finance department, it's all the activity for the whole year from all the departments that make up your financial statements. Within the financial
Bless you.
section, the first page there is on Sickich letterhead. This is where we've given our opinion on the financial statements. Spoiler alert, Ann already told you it's an unmodified opinion, but how do we get to an unmodified opinion is I think worth spending a couple minutes on. There's 2 sets of standards that we're required to follow when we're auditing the financial statements of the village. The first set of standards are the auditing standards, and those come from the AICPA, the American Institute for Certified Public Accountants. And those procedures tell us that those standards tell us the types of procedures we need to perform when we're conducting our audit. The second set of standards are the financial reporting standards that come from GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. And GASB sets the rules for financial statements for local governments such as the village. So this year, no different than other years, the village was required to implement 2 GASB standards. One was GASB Statement 100, which relates to changes in the reporting entity. When you have a change in a major fund to a non-major fund, not to get too far in the weeds, the rules of the road change a little bit for the financial statements. Doesn't change how you operate, changes how this document looks a little bit. The second GASB standard that was required to be implemented this year is GASB Statement 101, which relates to compensated absences. Compensated absences you and I would think of as vacation time and sick time, and GASB changed the rules of the road in terms of how that liability needed to be calculated and reported on the village's financial statements. That change was not a material impact to your financial statements. So while it was a lot of work for the finance department to determine that it wasn't a material change, it still was implemented successfully. As Ann mentioned, once we followed those 2 sets of standards and implemented the appropriate GASB standards, we did issue an unmodified opinion. And what that means is that the financial statements present fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, free of material misstatement. And this is the highest level of opinion that you can receive on your financial statements. In addition, we also issued a separate report on the village's compliance with the TIF laws and regulations of the state of Illinois, namely your downtown TIF district, as required under Illinois compiled statutes, is required to have a compliance audit. And we gave an unmodified opinion on the village's compliance with TIF laws and regulations. That report is part of an overall document that needs to be reported to the Illinois State Comptroller's Office each year. Past the independent auditor's report is a document called the Management's Discussion and Analysis. This is the executive summary of the report. It's required by GASB. It's prepared by the village. We review it to make sure it's consistent with the financial statement presentations and the requirements from GASB. This is a great summary document, in my opinion, of the village's finances. For those of your constituents who are interested in the finances of the village, I think this document, along with your annual budget document, which are both on your website, are very good places to reference your constituents should they have that interest. The last thing I want to bring to your attention relates to the pension plans of the village. And if you want to look at these documents, you're going to go back to page 72 in the report. And this is information related to the three pension plans that the village participates in. IMRF, your police pension plan, and your fire pension plan. So IMRF is for your non-sworn officers and firefighters. IMRF is for your other full-time employees. And each and every year, back up, the way IMRF works, for those of you who are new to the board, 4.5% comes out of the employee's check each and every payroll. And then each and every month, the village pays in that employee share plus the employer share. The employer share is determined by the actuaries at IMRF, and you pay that employer share each and every month. For the fiscal year ended April 30, 2025, the amounts change on a calendar year, but your average across those 12 months was 7.22% of covered payroll. That budgetary impact was $239,000. Your participation in IMRF, or rather the library's participation in IMRF, is with the village as the employer. So you also have the library contributing over to the village their share, and then those dollars are what go to IMRF. The employer contributions for police and fire determined a little bit differently. You have an independent actuary that gives you a dollar amount that you should fund each year. Most villages fund it through a tax levy, but that's not required. So the actuarially determined contribution for the police pension fund is on page 73. The dollars that you funded often are different than the actuarially determined contribution, because either one of two things happens. One, the village determines to put more dollars in, or two, the timing of the tax levy collections from Cook County can vary from year to year. You all don't have control over when those tax bills go out. So that does cause some angst when you look at these numbers, where you say, well, I know we've always funded exactly what the actuary recommended. You might have a year or two where the actual dollars that go over to the fund might be a little bit less, not by any choice that was made by the village board. So you can see all that information for the last 10 years on page 73. Page 74, fire pension, same information presented, actually determined contribution compared to the actual contributions made over to the fund. So those 3 pages on the employer contributions is telling you that the village is putting in what's required by the actuary. That's one way to look at, do we have a healthy pension fund system here in those 3 funds of the village? The other way is to look at the actual results. So if you go to page 76, page 76 is results for IMRF. This goes through December 31st, 2024, which is the fiscal year end of IMRF. So they calculate things based on their fiscal year. And this schedule is a little unique in that as we talked about, the library participating with the village, then one of our jobs in the audit of the village is to determine, based on the actuary information provided by IMRF, how much of that liability relates to the village and how much of that liability relates to the library. We do it by a allocation of salaries, basically. So 81% of the salaries in IMRF are village related. So if you look on page 76, far right-hand column, bottom right corner, you're 89.24% funded, down slightly from 93.6. 89% is a really well-funded pension plan. Information that comes for the police and fire pension fund comes from your independent actuary, pages 77 and 78, is showing the difference between the total pension liability versus the assets that have been accumulated. GASB's fancy word is planned fiduciary net position. That's just assets at market value. So you look at the double underscored numbers in the far right-hand column, the net pension liability is 12.2 million. Your funded percentage is at the top of page 78, 63.78%, up from 60.38% in the prior year. It doesn't sound like a big number compared to IMRF, but that is well ahead of the statewide average for police and fire pension funds in the state of Illinois. Furthermore, 63% funded is a very well-funded pension plan. And then finishing on pages 79 and 80 is the fire pension information, and the plan is up from 43.6% to 46.05%. Obviously, the village board has no control over the benefits provided to both Article 3 police pension funds or Article 4 fire pension funds. Those are set by the state legislature. Those are the highlights of the information that I had prepared for you this evening. In conclusion, the audit went smoothly and was completed on time and according to the schedule that was mutually agreed upon with our firm and the village. So I'm very happy with how our team performed, and obviously the village did a great job in being ready despite all the things going on internally at the same time. Your staff are very professional and easy to work with, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much. And it is really exciting news to get another unmodified opinion. Congratulations to Finance Director Navoa and Malaya in the back, Assistant Finance Director, and great job to your entire team. This is already posted online for those of you who are interested in a little nighttime reading. And if you get to, if there's 200 pages here, feel free to go through it all. But if you don't, if you just go through one thing, which is the introduction section at the front, there is an excellent summary of some of the challenges that the village has faced and how the village manages finances. And so if you do nothing else, taking a look at the first section is really helpful for understanding the work that the board does here and also that the work of staff. So I'm just going to give that shout out. And that is under the Finance Department's homepage on the website. I'll start with questions from the board. Trustee Daggett.
So I don't have any questions. I usually come up with questions later because there's a lot of weeds here to get into. But I do appreciate the unmodified opinion again. And, being on this board, it's amazing because every time one of our departments comes up and presents, I just feel like it's an opportunity for us to brag about how amazing they are. And for you to come and say, yeah, you should be bragging about them it's exactly how we feel. Anne and her group does amazing work. And I know we're a small village where, finances are not always easy for a small village, but it's nice to be able to look at what we're given and then you guys come in and say, yep, nope, what you were told is exactly what's going on. And that there's no recommendations for changing anything moving forward as far as our reporting goes, to me, shows the professionalism that we already know that we have. And getting it 2 years in a row for that. And then also our 47th? It's fantastic. So I've had people who don't know much about Flossmoor say, oh, you're in the south suburbs, you guys have financial problems. I'm like, nope. No, we are a very, very well-run village. And this allows me to say, see, we're very well run. So if you do business in Flossmoor, know we're financially sound and our finance department is amazing. So thank you for all the work that you've done. This is so cool to be able to sit here for a second year in a row and get this unmodified opinion. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Trustee Rogers.
No questions at this time.
Thank you. Trustee Mustafa.
Thank you for what you've presented, and thank you to all who participated in this year and the previous years. One of the benefits that I've gained from our various audits, 5-year plans, all of our reports, is the history of the village and how the funds are described. And they're very good training and educational resources, not only for residents, but especially for the board. So thanks to all for providing that. So I wanted to ask, just for information, if you could give a couple examples of 2 things that always catch my attention. The audit is prefaced with clarification and almost the caveat that effectiveness is not what you review, and you look for material. Tell me the term. Deficiencies, right. So could you give an example of what a material deficiency could be? Because we didn't have any. Or what's the difference between effectiveness and financially sound audited reports?
So so the definitions from those standards that I talked about
Yes.
before, if you had findings, if you will, in your audit, they would need to be classified based on the terminology that the AICPA provides us. So a material weakness, which is the most severe type of finding, would be something that is occurring that would cause you to not be able to produce materially correct financial statements. So an example of that might be performing a bank reconciliation once a year versus doing it monthly. And we all sit around and say, that doesn't make any sense. But trust me, it happens. It doesn't happen here, but trust me, it happens. All I work with throughout the year is local governments throughout the state of Illinois. So 365 days a year, that's what I do. And so you do see these things. So that would be an example.
Effectiveness that we should certainly be very grateful for the professionalism of our finance and all of our staff, because not just finance, but everybody's work pours into this. But you're very clear that you're not looking for the effectiveness of our processes, but whether or not the information provides sound financial reporting. Can you give an example of what effectiveness could be?
So part of an audit is you're auditing what's occurred. You're auditing something in the history of the village. So you're looking at everything as of and for the year ended April 30th, 2025. So that's not a measure of effectiveness. That's a measure of what actually happened. And then we have to utilize those GASB standards to make sure that the transactions that were reported on the village's financial statements reflect what GASB expects to see on the financial statements. So that's not telling you you're effective at what you did. It's telling you you reported properly what you did.
What kind of an audit or review would we get if we were looking for a review of effectiveness?
So this is a financial statement audit. So that's the world that I work in. So I'm not sure what that would be.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Trustee Mitros.
I can tell you that they would not get an place else. Findings are a sign of effectiveness in what our department does. Clearly, down to the ball. Up and accused. Well, they're perfect. Watch you guys. Heard of you, but Gary, $100 million. Hard report, hard running. How you?
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Lofton.
Well, a lot of what Trustee Mitros just said has everything to do with Amalia and the entire finance team, which we are just totally fortunate and grateful for. I appreciate that. I did have one question though with regard to the TIF report. Went through it and all the right buttons. You analyze it or say that it is that we fairly stated what was required from the state of Illinois. Is fairly stated okay? Is that a good number for us?
That's in that language, it's the equivalent of an unmodified opinion. Yes. Yep.
Perfect. Right.
we get frustrated with the language that's required by the ALCPA as well. So
It's all right.
I'm here to make sure that you all understand what it means.
Well, that's why I asked.
Great
Thank you.
question.
Thank you. Trustee Dorsey.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of parroting what others have said. It actually annoys the heck out of me. But I think in this case, it warrants it. Right? I think the job, and I think one of the first things I said when I came on this board was how impressed I was with, and I say this out in the community, the X's and O's of how we run this village is top notch. I can't count the number of times I've had that conversation with you and that conversation with you, Bridget. So this warrants repeating what everyone said. I'm going to sum it up with a ditto. And typically, I'm not a fan of having auditors hang around longer than what they need to. So thanks for the good news. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one additional question, and that has to do with our reserve policy. We're going to be talking about reserves in just a little bit. Would you mind answering a reserve policy question?
Sure, be happy to.
So back in the fiscal year 2014 budget, the reserve policy was raised from 30% to 33%. My understanding is that we're required to be at a minimum of 25%. Do you have any opinions or from what you've seen around the state and what the work you've done for other folks on is 33% too much? Should the board consider going down to 30%? What kind of opinion do you have on that?
So it's a village board policy.
Mhm.
And what you all might decide is your policy might be different than another community's policy. And it all has to do with, one, you all's comfort level, and two, what are the revenue streams that are funding the general fund of the village? So are those revenue streams subject to cyclical things? So if you're heavily funded by sales tax, so you all have been to probably the mall in Oak Brook, they're heavily funded by sales tax. So the economy can impact sales tax significantly. So I would expect a community like Oak Brook that's heavily funded by sales tax to have a higher fund balance reserve policy than one that's more predominantly funded with property tax. So you need to evaluate that. I will tell you, third-party financial advisors or the markets, when they're looking at a new bond issue, they're going to expect, they're looking in their models at something between 25 and 50%. And you're asking 30 versus 33. So I mean, they're giving you a pretty wide, and also go back and look at the last time you had your rating reviewed and see if there was commentary in that rating about what their expectations about fund balance policy. The key pieces in a rating review, in the ones that I've seen, are general fund balance, pension funding. Those are the top two things you'll see in every rating review. That doesn't mean that what they tell you in that is the gospel. It's still a board policy, and you all know better. And it's not just, you can't just isolate the general fund reserves in its own bubble, because you have to be looking at these 5-year plans like you're doing tonight, whether it be five-year operational plans or 5-year capital plans, and how are we funding that? And the fund balance policy doesn't work without, at some point, looking at a debt policy if you don't already have a debt policy, because how you're funding that capital is, are we going to accumulate reserves and use those reserves to pay for the projects? Or are we comfortable issuing bonds, debt, where we have, future principal and interest payments to pay that? So it's a more broad thought process, in my opinion, than should our fund balance policy be tightened between 30 and 33%. So not that that's not a valid concern, but there's a lot to that to unbundle there.
Those are great suggestions. Thank you so much.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, Clerk Porter, will you please call the roll on the adoption of the 2024-2025 audit?
Trustee Rogers.
Yes.
Trustee Mustafa,
Yes.
trustee Mitros. Yes. Trustee Lofton,
Yes.
trustee Dorsey,
Yes.
trustee Daggett.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Brian. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening, Mr. Lefebvre. Next up, can I get a motion to approve the ordinance of the Village of Flossmoor, Cook County, Illinois, amending Chapter 103 and 150 of the Village of Flossmoor Municipal Code, alcoholic beverages?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you so much. Presenting, I have Village Manager Wachtel.
Thank you. This is a continuation from the board's discussion on October 6th regarding a request for a liquor license by Tornado BP gas station. At the conclusion of that discussion, the board was willing to consider a new retail class that would permit the package sale of beer and wine only, similar to a Class BW, but further restricting access with locked cabinets and restricting access after the permitted hours of sale. The board asked that the sale hours mirror that of a Class BW. Attached in your packet is the ordinance that would amend the municipal code to create this new class. I will note that the hours of operation for a Class BW and a Class BW1 are being modified to be for to close at 10 p.m. for liquor sales for both of those two particular classes. And I will also note that there was a mistake in the hours of operation for two other classes, the public golf course class and the BWO, I believe. I don't have that right in front of me. Pardon, hold on one second. The mistake was actually in the ordinance that's included in your packet. The intent here is to keep those particular hours of operation the same as what is currently in the code. And so for a Class B public golf course, PGC, the weekday hours would be for 11 p.m. for the facilities, 9 p.m. for premises, excluding the facilities. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday would be midnight for facilities only, 9 p.m. for premises, excluding the facility, and New Year's Eve for 2 a.m. for the facility only. And the Class B WO would be 11 p.m. on weekdays, 12 a.m. on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and 2 a.m. on New Year's Eve. And should the board approve the resolution or the ordinance, I would ask that you make that amendment on the floor this evening, and then we will make that adjustment to the ordinance before it is sent for codification. So with that, I see that we have representatives from Tornado BP with us here this evening. That really concludes the comments I had prepared, and I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. This is just a reminder that we don't keep any liquor licenses on the shelf, and this is simply to create a new category of licenses that mirrors the sales that Meyer Gas Station down the street does. I'll take questions from the board first. Trustee Daggett.
Just for clarification, and a little bit for me and maybe a little bit for others who may have the same questions as me, what exactly are we discussing and voting on tonight? Is it just the creation of a new classification?
Correct.
Or is it the creation of a new classification and awarding it to someone?
Just the
It's just the
creation of the
classification.
classification.
That's it. Okay. Yeah, I'm good with the classification. I think that it's good to have the specifics already laid out so that if we have a situation that comes up, it's already there and applies. Even if there's someone who in the future comes to us, we've already got it. We've already got it figured out. We've already discussed it, kind of vetted that whole part out. So the creation of a new classification, I'm good with.
Right. Thank you. Trustee Rogers.
I'm fine with the classification with the amendments that we discussed.
Thank you. Trustee Mustafa.
Following up with what trustee Daggett is asking. So if the board would approve the new classification, then does that mean that any business could apply for it? How does that work?
Correct.
And
Is that
then,
no? Oh, Village Manager Wachtel's. We still don't have anything on the shelf. They would still have to come before the board.
Correct. So the intent behind the creation of this classification was with respect to the application made by Tornado BP. So whether that occurred at this meeting or a subsequent meeting, if you were to approve the classification, you would also need to consider their request for the actual license itself.
But that would be at a future meeting.
Yes, it could be.
okay, so if the board would not approve this, this language could be a module that could be plopped into this code at a later date. And would we be leaving the language as is if we don't approve tonight? We take out the BW one.
So if you do not approve the new classification, then it's not a part of the code at that point.
It stays the way it was yesterday or the way it is today.
Correct.
Okay,
There'd be both a class, for packaged liquor, there'd be both a class B and a class BW.
I would not approve adding this. I understand there has been work to create it, but with the response from residents that they would not want this classification to apply to the business tornado, I think it would be additional extra work for them to come before the board to ask to be approved for this, knowing that there could be a vote against them. So I don't approve the change to this code. I'd like to save steps and save work for everyone.
Thank you. Trustee Matros.
I don't have any questions. Comments.
Thank you. Trustee Lofton.
Just one question. If Myers Service Station were to change their hours now, closing or become 24 hours, would this apply to them? Would they have to now go through the process of putting locks on their freezers, and what would they have to do?
No,
to comply?
they are currently a class BW license, and they're the only change that's being proposed with respect to that classification of license in this ordinance is the hours of permitted sales that would expire at 10 p.m. Right now, that is more, the language in the code is more generous than that. So in order to mirror the two, when we made the, when we were making the proposed recommendation of the class BW1, we went ahead and suggested that modification so that the hours of operation were the same for both classes, or hours of permitted sale, excuse me.
W1 also requires, really does not offer self-service, if I understand it correctly.
Correct. Like, correct, you couldn't just grab a bottle off the shelf and walk to the counter. You'd have to ask for it.
That changed for Myers.
No, they do not have that restriction.
But if they were to become 24 hours, would they now have to go? I mean, this is based on a 10 o'clock sales time. So there's no impact on them. I'm just trying to be fair. To
Understood.
one that exists, and we're making this change for one that doesn't exist yet. Anything they would have to do if they change their hours of operation.
Yes, I would suggest some thoughts from the village attorney. I mean, one thing that comes to mind that the board could potentially do in April prior to the expiration of everybody's current license is you could take away the class BW1 or BW effective May 1 of a subsequent year, or, you know, the following month, in which case then Meyer would have to apply for the next closest license. At the same time, you could permit two BW ones at that point, and then they could make an application for a class BW1. Is that, Attorney Miller, is that one way to do it?
Yeah, I think that is, but maybe I'm confused just because I don't know what Meyer is. So is Meyer, I'm just looking
Meyer,
at that.
Meyer has a gas station where they're permitted to sell retail beer and wine.
But they're 24/7.
No, they close at
Oh, I
10.
thought you were saying they're 24/7.
If they were to go to.
Oh, okay, so they're 10 o'clock.
That's right.
So, but aren't, I guess what I'm asking, isn't that what the request to approve here is for it to be 10 o'clock for this class as well?
For the new class,
Yeah.
correct?
But they're open 24/7.
But the alcohol.
Meyer is not, right? So
There's
if
a
Meyer
difference.
decided to go 24/7, we should have some kind of mechanism in BW that if they change their hours, that it would trigger a new review. I would think. I think
Not my
that's what
thought.
George is, yeah, I agree with you. So if April's the time to do it, I think that's what should be done.
Yeah, because I thought one to prevent any gas station from doing that. That's what I thought the point of of us creating the BW1, so that it would be equal for anybody. Because I guess, and then I do have a question, because then is Meyer under Meyer, or are they under Meyer gas station? Because then that's,
They have two separate licenses, one
Okay.
for the grocery store and, because that's full alcohol, and one for the gas station.
I guess here's my question. If I guess the BP would be 24 hours is what you're saying.
Yes.
But
They
they're
are
still,
24-hour
but they would still have to comply with this. So that wouldn't change anything. In order to change, if they both wanted to go to midnight or 24/7 alcohol, I think they would have to come back. You'd have to change the ordinance again, is where I'm at on it. But I could be wrong on that. It looks like right now what you're saying is this new class is just going to have the same hours as what Meyer has. You're equating them to be the same. So even if Myers decide we want to be 24/7, their alcohol hours are still the same as what you got here. Am I missing something there?
Yeah, I think the point that Trustee Lofton is referring to is the provision for the locked cabinets and
Well, that's
and
part of it, yeah.
restricted access. So
Exactly, yeah.
that's the main difference with the class BW1, because it is a 24-hour operating environment. Meyer is not that currently, and they have made no proposal for that. So I mean, we are under a what if scenario.
Yeah.
But I think if we were to get to that point, that there could be a workaround for that.
Yeah, I think we would have to, almost like you suggested, Bridget, we'd have to be looking at them doing a new application and maybe in the code. I think they'd have to do a new application though.
I mean, even if they went to 24 hours tomorrow, they'd still be restricted to the
Right.
10 p.m. time. The only difference is going to be the restriction of the product to the public.
Would it make more sense then, instead of adding a classification, just make the current classification more strict or restrictive, I should say, rather than having two? If we want if we want it all to be locked up after 10, no matter who it is, wherever it is, wouldn't it make sense just to change the current classification? So when they do come up to renew it, they have to now meet the new, more restrictive policy, or is that slippery slope?
But do we want to be that restrictive, or do we want to actually take this on a case-by-case basis? Right,
question.
when there's been no incidents at a location, do you want to impose that restriction right now? Or do you just have them at time of renewal or time of modification, come back before the board? And the same thing we did with the one from last board meeting, look at those issues specific to that entity and then make the decision. Because for me, that's when this comes in handy, right? We have this to say, yeah, we're going to make some changes on your new licensure, right? Or you want to make this modification, but here's another option that we think may or may not fit better for you. So, you know, that's my opinion on approving what we have in front of us. It gives us another alternative.
But we have to remember what Chief Estelle said. He said, when you have a later location, they become the go-to.
Sure. And we consider that when they come before us with a change. We don't have to make that decision today.
But they still can't sell past 10.
Right.
So I agree with Kevin. Take the cross that bridge when we come to it stance. So I'm fine with this.
And to clarify, the applicant was willing to, and the board had requested that the product be locked and restricted. So the way that I read that, and Attorney Miller, please opine because a different attorney wrote this, but they agreed to have the product locked at all times. And if you were to make that change now for Meyer, you'd be imposing an operational change on them.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
And I don't buy liquor from Myers, in or out, but their cabinets are open. You can go in and get your stuff there now. This would cause them to have to make a change, which is not only a physical change, but they got to get somebody to go in it and get the beer, wine, and they then have to have somebody, if there's a line there, people, they have to change their work habits.
And based upon review, at the time they came up for any modifications or any renewal, we have this as an option that can be used based upon the specifics of their operational pattern. So again, I'm in favor of this.
They can make a choice.
Yeah.
And I agree with, because you're talking, I see what you're seeing, reading from, Kathy, you drafted it, but I think, I agree with your reading here, and I'm looking, because I'm looking at that on page, it's on page 68 of 78, so.
Trustee Lofton, did you have any other questions?
I think I've said enough.
Trustee Dorsey?
Oh, I just took my turn.
You took your turn. Okay, just making sure. All right, if there are no other questions or comments, Clerk Porter, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Daggett.
Yes.
Trustee Dorsey.
Yes.
Trustee Lofton.
Yes.
Trustee Mitros.
Yes.
Trustee Mustafa.
No.
Trustee Rogers.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have discussion of the fiscal year 2026 through 2031 5-year projections. And Village Manager Wachtel will be walking us through that.
Thank you. I'm going to give Assistant Manager Bogue and Finance Director Novoa a minute here to pull up our presentation. Ann and I will be tag teaming the discussion here this evening. This is a financial, thank you. This is a financial exercise that we go through every 2 years. And as you heard our auditor make reference to it this evening, it is one of several financial practices that our bond rating company has looked at very favorably at time of review in an effort to show that the village is being proactive and thoughtful in its fiscal preparation and a fiscal or response to fiscal issues. So we've been doing this for a long time, nearly 20 years. And it really just takes a look at our general fund. It's a very high level overview of just our general fund operating expenses. And it takes a look at the current fiscal year as the board has approved its budget. So it's the only year that is inclusive of a total fund perspective with respect to capital projects and capital improvements. And then from there on out, and Ann will talk a little bit about methodology, but from there on out, it talks or just takes a look at the operating position of the village for the next 4 years. This is a budget exercise, so kind of shift your mindset. We heard about the audit here this evening, which obviously is taking a look at actual numbers, what the village actually spent. Now we're going back to a perspective of budgeting, and budgeting is always done in a very conservative way. So tonight's presentation is going to be talking about the methodology of the study as well as the findings, and that's what Ann is going to cover. We're then going to take a look at kind of comparing, all right, how does this really look compared? We're going to do a little bit of a look back. How does this really look compared to our projections in the analysis compared to actuals that have occurred over the last few years? We're then going to talk a little bit about other considerations that the board should have on its radar as you think about our long-term financial planning. And then we're going to talk about some options. And to be clear, this is a discussion tonight. No decisions need to be made. Of course, we always welcome the board's feedback and input. And what's great about this exercise is a couple of things. One, we're not at a point in time of any sort of fiscal stress. So we can really plan and think ahead, and you plan for the worst and you prepare for the best. So that is part of what this exercise does. And I will tell you, in the past, over several years, there have been really key financial decisions that the board has made that have been really paramount to being able to continue to sustain our operations in an environment where we've had to face things like inflation, unfunded mandates, a great recession, foreclosures. I could go on, but decisions over the years have been everything from going to referendum to pursuing a stormwater utility fee to pursuing the non-home rule sales tax. So all of that with the eye toward being able to sustain our services. Of course, at the board's discretion, you can certainly take a look at the expenditure side of the equation as well, and we can certainly open up a discussion about the delivery of services. From a staff perspective, this is a great exercise as well, because it provides us an opportunity to have some internal dialogue about our budgeting and our practices, and why we do things the way that we do them, that we may not always take the time to have those kinds of conversations. So especially this year, a few items have come forward that we've spent some time talking about internally, some of which we're going to be presenting here tonight for part of the conversation, and some of which we'll bring forward at some other point in time. But with that, I am going to let Ann talk about the methodology of the study and the findings for this particular year.
Thanks, Bridget. The 5-year analysis, as Bridget mentioned, is an exercise off of budgeted numbers. For this exercise, we take a very conservative approach, meaning we do not overestimate revenues and we do not underestimate expenditures. There's no capital expenditures beyond the current fiscal year, so this is strictly taking a look at operating. Capital equipment fund is considered an operating expenses this, since it is funded by a transfer, a very large transfer from the general fund. So that is included in these numbers. It's important to understand that this spreadsheet used to analyze these numbers was inputted from all departments. Each department reviewed their own budget lines and gave the input to me to then generate the spreadsheet. Departments reviewed all line items and provided assumptions to any expenditure lines that is likely to follow a trend that deviates from average CPI, which was 4% that was used, or an average of historical actuals. So we'll take a look back of over the last 5 years, what's the growth in these numbers, and apply it to 5 years going forward. Additionally, core assumptions were developed for certain items across all department expenditures, especially fringe benefits. So it's salaries, health insurance, life insurance, payroll taxes, unemployment, IRMA premiums. So our insurance premiums for general fund liabilities and workers' comp, things like that. Petroleum and computer network maintenance. Revenue assumptions were developed for major revenue categories, also with assumptions provided by departments for their specific revenues. And then the findings. So going from top to bottom on the presentation here, operating revenues increased by approximately 42% in this analysis, and the operating expenditures increased by approximately 23% across the 5 years. Fixed costs makes up about 90% of the operating expenditures. Fixed costs are what I mentioned just a little bit ago: salaries, fringe benefits, which is health insurance, things that won't be going away, pensions. The net growth in fund balance from fiscal year 26 to fiscal year 31 is 11%. The results of this exercise show that the village cannot meet its reserve policy almost immediately in fiscal year 27. With all that being said, the 5-year analysis is an exercise based off of FY26 budget. that was passed with a $1.5 million operating deficit. As just discussed, the village is in a strong financial position based off the actual numbers coming in from fiscal year 25. Basing this exercise off of budgeted numbers helps the village identify budgeted shortfalls and plan accordingly to avoid situations like the one on the screen here. The 5-year analysis continues to show an immediate and long-term structural imbalance between the village's operating revenues and operating expenditures. And then I'll pass the mic to Bridget to discuss opportunities and options for the village to address and avoid this from happening.
Thank you, Anne. So just taking a look back for a moment, the projections that of previous studies compared to our actuals, what does that look like? We thought this was important to be able to show really how realistic our methodology is. And overall, and I'll talk a little bit here about the numbers on the screen, but overall, it's showing that this rate of growth comparison confirms that our methodology is a pretty sound methodology. While the projected dollars and expenditures haven't been fully realized as part of our, from moving from projections in the study to actuals, it's really due to a couple of big reasons. First, we see, and you hear me talk about this every year with respect to the annual budget, we tend to experience some good short-term savings in fixed costs because of things like vacancy turnover, which has an impact on salaries and benefits. The second large component to this whole equation is the workload and timing of capital projects. And that has a direct balance or a direct impact on the drawdown of fund balance. And as you saw in the report, while we've seen an overall growth in our fund balance from fiscal year 20 to 25, for the last 2 fiscal years, we've actually seen a drawdown in total fund balance when you take a look at our capital projects and the impact that has on our fund balance levels. So taking a look at our fixed costs, what you're seeing here is, whether we're doing this from a budgetary exercise or we're actually taking a look at our actuals, our audited actuals, we're pretty consistent. They've gone up about 33%, whether you're taking a look at this, theoretical study or you're taking a look at what actually happened in our audit. When we take a look at our taxes, the classification of taxes and revenues, and this is everything outside of property taxes, while our projections anticipated a 60% growth over that period of time from fiscal year 19 to 23, what we actually experienced was about a 50% growth. Sales tax, on the other hand, that number has grown so much in the last several years since 2016 that we tend to pull that number out and take a specific look at it. Our 5-year analysis showed a 79% growth in that number over that period of time. However, actually it was 77. So again, we were pretty spot on. And this is where you see really the what's happening on the general fund balance side, right? Our projections in this study itself were showing a 28% increase, and in reality, thankfully, the good happened, right? We saw the opposite, a 44% increase over time. I think it's also, as you see there, sales taxes become 42% of our current tax revenue. That's pretty significant, and I think worthy of pointing out. And then you can see the, almost 900,000 that's been drawn down over the last couple of years when you account for our total fund perspective. So what else needs to be on the board's radar as we're talking about, what to do with this analysis? A few things that we shared in the report. The first being, the continuous threat of loss of state shared revenues. You hear me talk about this at the time of the budget preparation and budget discussion. Our state income tax revenue, also known as the Local Government Distributive Fund, LGDF, is our third largest revenue source. Interestingly enough, it's probably the one that's grown the most over the last 5 years. And it's also the one that is, continuously the most threatened from a state perspective. We continue to be very concerned about the state sweeping that revenue. The second is the elimination of tier 2 pensions, and this is, really has been in front of us now for probably close to 2 years at this point, and I expect it to be back in veto session. And really, when you hear the news talk about quote unquote state pensions, you really have to discern what groups of employees at what levels they're talking about. So here we're talking about Article 3, Article 4, so police and fire, as well as IMRF. In 2011, the state created a tier 2 system, really because of the cost of pensions, and it established a different level of pension benefits, and therefore a different level of funding to be able to support that. Here we are, 14 years later, and there's movement afoot to try to eliminate tier 2 and try to restore all current employees and future employees to tier 1. That is a very expensive proposition. And so that remains a concern for all municipalities across the state of Illinois, that if this were to happen, how would we possibly make up the past 14 years and be able to move forward with that level of funding? Just taking a look at the current system that we have, pointing out the increase that we see in the public safety pension contributions that come from the employer side. So over the course of the past 5 years, on the police side, we've seen a 90% increase in the actuarial determined contribution, and that's just in the past 5 years. For fire, that number is 68%. So those are three really significant threats that the village should have at the front of its mind as we move forward. When it comes to opportunities, new development, we've got a couple of things on the horizon right now that could impact our sales tax. So new development definitely becomes an opportunity for us, both for property tax and sales tax. However, at the same time, at least with the sales tax perspective, we've become pretty dependent on it. If it's 42% of our tax revenue, it's one that is significantly contributing to the maintenance of our operations today. And so, of course, that becomes a concern and something to be mindful of moving forward. We still have opportunities for economic development in Southwest Flossmoor and even in what we call the Governor's Kedzie Triangle. The village has been very aggressive with trying to see some development opportunities. And we actually have a few that have received some conceptual approval, and we look forward to seeing how those developments progress and hope to see, obviously to see them come to fruition. So those are all of some factors that the board should be considering as you're making any sort of decisions that come out of this analysis. So part of our job is to educate and remind the board of what your options are. And of course, I always say doing nothing is always an option. But everything that's up here on the slide and even in your report, it's not that we're advocating for all of these. They're all on the table. They're all things that could be talked about. And the one that we talked about a little bit already this morning or this evening is with respect to our financial policies. So everything from our capital equipment fund to our pension contribution policy to our fund balance policy, debt policies, those are all items that the board could consider. And really, as we were taking a look at this study here this year, the topic, obviously, as we were talking about earlier, fund balance policy came up. And the last time the board talked about this, the board actually moved to a more conservative decision. The board went from 30 to 33%. So as the mayor mentioned this evening, should there be a discussion about moving back to 30%? That policy is also reflective of our audited total fund expenditures from the previous year. And one thing that the finance director and I have been talking about is, that number can significantly fluctuate depending on how much capital and capital projects have been planned for the previous year. And really, if we're at the level of pulling our reserves, are we really worrying about getting capital projects done, right? We're worrying about maintaining operations. So, should we take a look at that policy just to have it reflect an operating perspective as opposed to a total fund perspective? So that's one item. Another item that staff talked about pretty significantly, and one that we're going to be watching more closely as we move into the mid-year financial review and even the budget itself, is our fund allocations between the general fund and the water sewer fund. We've been in a position for so many years now where the general fund has just had to shoulder all of these expenses that really, many of which could be justified as going through the general fund. So a share of expenses with respect to our information technology costs. We have employees whose either whole salary or a portion of their salary is all related to water and sewer service. So as we see the health of the water fund improve, can we do some reallocation to try to alleviate some of the financial stress on the general fund? And that's something that we're going to be looking at more closely as we go through these next several months, undertake our mid-year financial review, and then bring back the preparation of the fiscal year 27 budget for you. None of that creates any more money or eliminates expenses. But it does, alleviate some pressure to the general fund and really, more appropriately, it reflects the costs of the water and sewer fund. The report goes on to talk about additional revenues that the village could pursue. That is everything from a utility tax on water to a places for eating tax and even to an amusement tax. The most significant additional revenue opportunity that the board could take without going to referendum would be a places for eating tax, and that is equivalent to the home rule version of a food and beverage tax. So again, if this is something that the board would like to have further conversations about, we would prepare a more in-depth analysis of what that would look like, the types of ordinances that we would have to approve here locally, the impact. It is a revenue that we would have to collect here at the local level, is not one that runs through the state of Illinois. So there is an administrative workload associated with it. And of course, I know the board always likes to know who else is doing it. And so we would include that information in our report as well. And then, of course, going to referendum is always an option for the board, whether that is like a property tax referendum, for example. We did that in 2006. It's a referendum that would increase the limiting rate for purposes of the property tax levy. And that, of course, could be an option for you as well. On the service side, all of that assumes that the board does not have a desire to modify the level of service. When your fixed costs are 90% of your budget, if you're going to make any sort of meaningful impact to the delivery of services, you're very quickly into a conversation about what services are we delivering and how are we delivering them. So the other side of the equation is to take a look at the expenditure side, which is certainly something that the board, if the board would like to pursue, we could certainly present a framework for the board to have that conversation. So with that, this evening, of course, we welcome any board feedback that you may have on the report. Happy to answer any questions that you have. Happy to bring back additional conversations if you'd like to pursue any of this for topic and conversation. As I mentioned, we will be completing our mid-year financial review once the month of October closes. And then staff will be charged with taking a look at how we've been performing over the last 6 months in fiscal year 26 and how we anticipate fiscal year 26 to close. And we'll bring that conversation back to the board probably end of December, beginning of January. And believe it or not, by the time you're hearing it, our staff will already be working on the fiscal year 27 budget. So I know everybody was ready to put their feet up after hearing tonight's audit conversation, but that is far from the case. We're kind of back into that budget audit cycle. So so with that, I'll also mention, like I said, we've got a few irons in the fire when it comes to prospects for economic development, one of which we're going to talk about later this evening with the sale of village property. And no matter what, we are going to continue to focus on pursuing development opportunities where we can in Flossmoor. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or receive any feedback.
Thank you. And I'll just piggyback off of the executive session that we're going to have later on to say there's 2 more developers who have reached out to me today and late last week for Southwest Flossmoor. So those meetings are ongoing. And once I have something more concrete, I'll bring it in front of you. I think there's several things that you mentioned in here. One of the things that I want to just clarify when we talked about this at the budget last spring was that $1.5 million operating deficit. Again, that was a planned operating deficit. And that was money in excess of the minimum level of reserves that we are required to have that was put back to capital projects. And that's the responsible way to handle excess reserves, is putting it back into infrastructure that benefits the community and makes us safer and improves our quality of life. So I just wanted to make that clarification. It's always good to do these 5-year reviews. Even though they can be a little depressing, it's good in advance of the mid-year review and in advance of the budget season to really take a hard look at the decisions that we're going to make for the next year. So thank you for your work on that. There are a couple of things that I just wanted to throw out there to the board and get your feedback on. I'll start with the things that I don't think would be a good use of our time. First off, you threw out a home rule option, and I would not be in favor of that. I think that takes a tremendous amount of staff time, and also the possibility of it passing, I think, are very limited given the unrestricted taxing authority it would give to future boards. So I think there's lower hanging fruits that we can go after first. I'd also say no to any additional taxes on utilities such as water. I think there's some other things that we can look at before we look at that. I also don't think we should change our contributions to pensions or the capital equipment fund. I think that'll just hamstring future boards, and I don't want to place this on them. And I would say no to a future referendum at this point. But again, if things change significantly, I think we can discuss it. But what I would say yes to, and what I would like to look into, again, the board's support on continued push for development. Village Manager Wachtel is doing a lot of jobs, and one of them is Economic Development Director, and she is working very hard with me to encourage development here in Flossmoor and to have these meetings with folks and to get their ideas and try to push them along. I would also like to look at a places for eating tax and an amusement tax. I think that's a low hanging fruit. It's easy to do. Most of our neighboring municipalities do it. This wouldn't just be solely placed on our residents. folks who are shopping in Flossmoor and coming here for entertainment, they would be helping us, and we get a lot of that traffic. I'd also like to look at the lower reserve policy and see if there's any benefits to doing that, and what that would do to our rating if that doesn't change our rating. Um, Also, I want to thank our directors in the back. They're always, especially around budget season, always looking for ways to improve the efficiency of their departments. So while I don't think we want to look at any cuts to service necessarily, looking at ways that we can be more efficient in the service that we provide is always extremely helpful and appreciated. And then the last point I'm going to touch on is moving operating expenses that have to do with water and sewer systems, moving that to the water sewer fund. That's been a dream of ours for a very long time, to get to a point where that fund is healthy enough to support the expenses for that service. And so I would like to also move some of the operating expenses away from the general fund that relate to the water and sewer fund, so that we can relieve some of that pressure on the general fund. And I asked village manager today, Wachtel today, about our pump to bill ratio and how that's doing with all of the new water meters. And she said that she was going to be able to talk to that at the mid-year review. We'll have a better idea for how that's functioning. So just throwing that out there. I'll start with questions from Trustee Dorsey.
Just had one, Mayor. The places for eating tax, would that have any negative consideration in economic development for that type of development, eating establishment?
Something to consider. I don't know if you want to address that.
Yeah, I think certainly taking a look at who else is doing it, right? Kind of the back to the level playing field conversation. But keep in mind, on a $10 bill, it's 30 cents. On a $100 bill, it's $3. And it's as the mayor pointed out and in the report, this is a tax that is shared by those who are also visiting our municipality. So, for example, Meyer touted that, at the time of their proposed development that, about 92% of their customer base was going to come from outside of Flossmoor. And we certainly see that with other regional attractions that we have in our community as well. So, have I ever heard of a prospective business saying, oh, we're not coming to that town because they have that tax? No.
It also it's a pass-through tax too. So it's not like it's coming out of their pocket. They're collecting it and turning it right back over to us.
Right. It becomes an additional tax on the bill.
Everything else, as you outlined, that was the only thing that raised as a question for me.
All right. Thank you so much. Trustee Lofton.
Years ago, we entered into something in the utility business called deregulation. And from day one, money has passed through ComEd for companies that are billing us for power. But about 40% of ComEd's customers still don't believe that. But that's a fact. It happens. I'm a firm believer in economic development. And I have hope. I see development occurring in our town. And that's going to end, well, not end, but it'll certainly help all of these issues that you have expressed, which I totally agree with. I think we should continue to focus hard on the economic development front because it's coming. We see it, and it's going to solve a lot of our issues. So I think that really kind of sums up my feeling right now.
Thank you. Trustee Mitros.
First, I've heard the the plan, but it never really comes to fruition as badly as kind of our staff would prepare us for. So some of the things that the mayor commented on, I agree. I don't think there should be a referendum. I don't think we should go to home rule. I don't even know who's discussing that or who's thinking of that. So I'm a little surprised at the mention of it. Water bill has been a thorn in our side for a long time, and for whatever reason, it's a pet of whoever out there that they never want to provide or charge the full cost of running a water department to the village. And we need to do that. We need to start weaning it off the general fund. So that's a good thing, and I'm definitely in favor of that. I agree with George. I mean, economic development could cure a lot of issues that we have. Now, not that we have any. So I don't think it's ever as bad as they make it sound. I think we always need to plan for the future, and it's been loaded up in our sites for a long time, so inevitably we're probably going to come to that. We've done a lot of work over the past years. You know, we got a $10 million works project. Never give it up, but we can't just keep going at the pace
We're not slowing down. We're not
Well,
slowing
I
down.
mean, what I'm saying is we're not going for another geo bond anytime soon. So, I think the good news is we're going to be okay. You know, we're going to be around for another 100 years. Always planning, of course, and it's never quite as bad as some people might make it sound. So, I guess what I'm saying is I agree with a lot of the things that everyone here has said, and I don't agree on. It won't affect our bond rating. It will affect our bond rating over time. They'll look at that and they'll go, why? They'll be suspicious about it. So if we can maintain what we have, improve here and there a little bit, we'll be okay. But I don't think we should reduce that.
So optimistic.
So we're going to be fine. We just have to keep planning, and that's what we're here for. So I'd say good job, everyone, and those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Trustee Mustafa.
Thank you, Trustee Mitros.
You're welcome.
I'm not going to make comments that disagree. I just want to take a different perspective. I defer to the village manager, the finance director. What I suggest is that if you could provide, for example, if we had a places for eating tax, when do we need to start collecting? And back up from that date. If we had any other revenue streams, when do we need to start collecting and back up from that date? Because all of these ideas are nice in the aggregate, but I think we need a more specific plan about when the money needs to hit the fund or be received. So whatever the businesses would have to do to put the 3% or 2% into effect, whatever administrative processes you have to develop, what time would it take to effect those? And we plan based on that, so that we're not saying necessarily that we will do it, but we need to know what it will take. Because if the first year we have sunk costs of $100,000 just to affect a places for eating tax, we need to know that. You know, marketing it or announcing it or putting a system in place or training people to do a process, we need to know that. Because if you expect to collect $500,000, that's not necessarily what you'll have the first year. So for me, I suggest that when you think about these options, with the mayor giving us some soft shoe marching steps, that we actually plan them in a way so that we can see when we would have the money. Also, let's keep on our large plan, the things that you don't want to do, so that we think about the pros and cons of the options we don't want, because there could be significant value for an idea that's difficult. There could be great benefit for an idea that's hard, but we need to know that. We don't need to put it in to implement it, but I think as stewards or trustees, staff with fiduciary responsibility for residents, we can better inform them that we've considered this, this. We know the pros and cons of each one. We're not saying based on opinion, but we've actually looked at it. Those are my comments. I'm not disagreeing that we have a crisis, but those who are day to day looking at the money, financial reports, 5-year plans, can help us to put all the options, on some kind of a plan, pros and cons, if you want to call it. It's not a SWOT because we're not looking at threats, but I do think we need a measured, more intentional approach and look at every option versus only looking at pros and cons for the ones we're leaning towards. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Trustee Rogers.
So for me, there were a lot of great ideas that were actually mentioned. I think looking at the reallocation of funds from the general fund to the water fund is a great idea. I just would like to get a projected amount as to what we think we may receive from the water fund if we reallocate those funds. The food and beverage tax, I actually am in favor of that. Other places are doing it, and it is a pass-through tax where the consumers would be paying the taxes, which would take a burden off of if we were to try to impose a referendum on the constituents. I'm not a fan of that. I'm also not a fan of lowering the reserves, because looking at things that are actually happening in the economy, I think keeping it at the 33% puts us in more of a safety net, and lowers our risk from a financial standpoint. What else did I write down here? And then I also think if we take a look at the expenditures to see if there is anything that makes sense for us to reduce, if we could, that might be something that we could look at. But if we find out that there's not things that we're willing to get rid of, then at least we know what our options are. Because for me, I'm looking at it as a correlational analysis. What are some of the things that we can do that would increase the relationship of us actually bringing in more revenue? And I'm also a fan of economic development, but I know that there's more longevity in us seeing the return on investment for some of the economic development that comes years down the line. So some of these things that have already been mentioned are more immediate things that I think we can take a look at. But I think if we have a projected estimate based on past experiences, we would have a better idea of what the best options are to take.
Thank you. Trustee Daggett.
Yeah, I appreciate this process immensely. It's kind of like financial war games. Like, you don't wait till you get into war to figure out what's going wrong. You try and figure it out before you get there and see where your holes are. And the gentleman to my left can speak a lot more to that because he's been through it. But I think it's good to look at, okay, what's the worst case scenario here? Like, what are we looking at? Now let's try and solve for it. And I think constantly being conservative like that with our finances is just the responsible thing to do. I think to be happy-go-lucky, and just be optimistic all the time is dangerous. Although we've outperformed our projections consistently over the last decade, which is fantastic, and we can lean on that. But who knows what this next year, next 5 years brings, which is what we're trying to look at. So I appreciate the exercise, and I think even doing that was one of the things that showed where our sewer and water was going to go if we didn't do anything about it, which allowed us as a board over the past 5 years to get to a point where we did the meter replacement. We did, we've started doing some of that stuff to reclaim that money back into the general fund. So I think this exercise shows that it has a lot of value in it, and I appreciate the hard work you guys put behind it. Couple notes: every time home rule comes up, I'll go on record by saying I cannot imagine a scenario where I would ever vote for this village to be on home rule, ever. I may trust the board that I sit with now, but I don't know what it's going to be in 4 years, 8 years. And it's a harder road to be non-home rule. It is. It takes a lot of easy things that you can do, but it also is a great protection to the community because we are bound by the things that the state has said, this is bad practice. So I'm on record for that. I do think places for eating tax is something to definitely discuss and look at. Again, the water and sewer fund, getting that thing as healthy and self-sufficient as possible is necessary. And I do also just want to say all of our directors do a fantastic job of looking at ways that we can save money. They're constantly doing it. It's like they're looking and saying, how can we save more? How can we save more? How can we save more? Some of that is by spending a little bit now so we save a lot later. Things like selling a fire truck at a time where it's got the most value that we can get out of it, so that, and then we buy another one, but that's going to save us tens of thousands of dollars. And continuing those things, I think, are critically important. And we have great teams back there that do this constantly. So I welcome the exercise. It is, you sit there and you kind of get the pit in your stomach, like, oh man, if this comes to fruition, this is going to stink. But now we can plan for it and figure out ways to get around it. So I appreciate it. And I think now as a board, we got some work to do to figure out what should we do and where should we go with this. And I appreciate the community's input. Anytime these things come up, we start getting calls and people stopping us and saying, hey, what's this? What's going on here? And I think it's good when we look at things in this way. So we get a lot of opinions, we get a lot of ideas, and I think ultimately come to the best situation. So yeah, I appreciate this. I think these numbers are important to look at, and I'm looking forward to tackling some of them.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation. Thanks to everybody who contributed to this. Next, we will need to go into executive session. So before we go into executive session, I'll call for other business. Trustee Mustafa.
I have no other business. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Rogers.
None for me.
Thank you. Trustee Dorsey. I'm sorry. Trustee Daggett.
I was getting skipped. I talked too much.
No, I'm sorry.
So I did just briefly as I can. I know when I say briefly, people say, okay, whatever. Since I've come on this board, one of the things that I've wanted to see us become is more and more easy to do business with. And a prime example of that was in the last week. I got a call from a business owner here in Flossmoor who had something that they were trying to navigate with the village. And they said, what can be done? So I talked to a couple people, and the fire department and also Bridget jumped on it like that and came up with a compromise that allowed them to comfortably maneuver the situation. And being able to do business, being easy to do business with is very important. And that one instance is consistent with what I've seen since I've been on the board. I think sometimes when you're out the outside looking in, you think maybe things are worse than they are. My experience has been is that by and large, the village under Bridget Wachtel and all of the directors, we're becoming easier and easier and easier to do business with because we learn, we change, and we make it easy. So I appreciate all the efforts that went into that. I know you guys have a ton going on. I tell Bridget every time she gets a text or a call from me, like, I know you love these because it's always creating work. But I never feel like anyone that I have a conversation with in the village is taking them begrudgingly or like, oh God, here we go, Gary again. It's always with a willingness and wanting to help and come up with solutions. So thank you for that this week and everything you guys have been doing consistently. So that's all I had.
Thank you. Trustee Dorsey.
No comments.
Thank you. Trustee Lofton.
This past weekend, the 2nd Congressional District Democrats had their annual awards ceremony, and they gave out a series of awards. which included Congressman Robin Kelly amongst a number of others. They gave the Public Safety Award to our police chief, Chief Estelle.
And you were there to congratulate him.
I was there, happy to congratulate.
Thank you so much. Trustee Mitros.
What a nice award, Carl. Everything you. I have nothing other than congratulations.
Thank you, Clerk Porter.
And I have nothing either. Thank you.
Village Attorney.
I'm going to say this briefly. You guys had a great discussion on the financial analysis. For better or for worse, I'm the guy and I'm the attorney in the firm that does all of the financial reviews for the clients. I'm the one they kind of stick in the corner for each firm has that guy. I'm that guy. I got to congratulate you guys for doing the review because a lot of the village managers, especially in Cook County, aren't doing it for a couple of reasons. One, you ain't getting your tax money yet. You're not going to get your tax money into January, probably. Number two, everyone's afraid of the tier 1, tier 2 thing. I was at a meeting at another village in another county. I can say that I was in Geneva, and their analysis of if the tier 2 goes away is that they're going to get hit with, it's going to be a tens of millions of dollar hit. I mean, not like $10 million, like $30 million, not all paid at once, obviously, but paid over time. We can argue one way or the other whether or not they should have created, tier 2 in the first place. But, because of that, it's just a gigantic hit, and obviously, so I congratulate you guys on doing that. You had a great discussion on it. So I just wanted to congratulate you guys on that and congratulate the village manager and her staff for doing that because a lot of your cohorts are trying to kick that can down the road, and particularly mostly because of the tier 2 thing.
And we actively lobby against that through the South Suburban mayors and managers. So that for those of you wondering what we're doing about that, we're actively lobbying against that. Village Manager Wachtel.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything until Attorney Miller made the comments he made. Just to piggyback off of that, a couple things. We are going to pursue an actuarial analysis of from tier 2 to tier 1. I think it's worth the little bit of investment to see, exactly what sort of hard dollars we'd be looking at. And of course, that becomes helpful information, whether it's Flossmoor or Geneva or any other community, when our respective mayors and other representatives are talking with our state officials, we can talk in hard numbers. So that is something that we're going to do. And I've reported on this a couple of times already, but with respect to the Cook County tax delay, there are communities and school districts who are really starting to feel the squeeze of not receiving those second installment property taxes yet. And I know our finance management team in the back of the room is probably sweating more than I am over this, but it's really the work of this group, the work of the board, the work of our staff that really has put us, it's discussions like we had tonight on the 5-year analysis that has put us in a position where we're able to weather a storm that we can't predict, right? And right now, cash flow is adequate, and we're able to, make payroll. We're able to pay our vendors. We're able to keep the lights on. But I mean, we have had conversations as a team about, all right, we might have to put the brakes on, replacing X piece of equipment until we know for sure, that the tax bills are out and we've got a projected timeline. But it is a testament to how this village has been run and managed, that we're able to be, how many months are we now? We're pushing 3, almost 4 months without property tax receipts, which is our largest revenue source. And we're able to function like it's any other day. So again, as Attorney Miller said, kudos to everybody in this room for the work that you've put in so that we can be in that type of position.
Thank you so much. And I want to welcome Deputy Chief, Fire Chief Matt Burke. Thank you so much for filling in. Do you have anything to add? This is your moment. Okay. Okay, just a few updates. Flossmoor History, just over a week ago, hosted a tour of Flossmoor's Frank Lloyd Wright home. Chicago Tribune picked it up. They put it on the front page of the Chicago Southtown newspaper, and then the Chicago Architecture Center shared out that story. It got over 900 impressions online. It got over 90 shares on social. We had 273 guests visit Flossmoor that day. Some came as far away as Buffalo, New York, just to see this house. We also had folks from North Carolina, Milwaukee, less impressive, I know, than Buffalo, but Indiana, and then throughout the state. We sent folks to our local shops to dine and to shop. So I would say it was a successful event. That really opened Flossmoor up to a whole new group of people. So that was great. Staff appreciation luncheon, the third annual, is this Friday from 11:30 to 1. We are looking forward to seeing everybody who is available that day. It's going to be a lot of fun, and just want to thank staff for the work that they do all year long. Flossmoor Social, the restaurant in downtown Flossmoor, they're opening this Wednesday. You'll probably need a reservation to get a table, so make sure you call ahead. But we're very excited about their opening. October is National Women's Small Business Month, and on October 28th, I'm helping host, along with DCEO, the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, Flossmoor Business Association, Homewood Business Association, and the Chicago Southland Chamber of Commerce, an event for not just women, but all business owners to learn more about DCEO funding and support structures for small businesses. And then the last thing that I'll mention is Halloween, a week from Friday. Just please encourage neighbors or whatever groups you're involved with to drive safely and to be very careful, because there will be a lot of kids on the street that night, not just Flossmoor kids, but kids from all over. So please be aware of that and drive slower. All right. With that, I'm going to ask for a motion to go into executive session to discuss the sale of village-owned property.
Second?
Thank you so much. Clerk Porter, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Rogers,
Yes.
Trustee Mustafa,
Yes.
Trustee Mitros.
Yes.
Trustee Lofton.
Yes.
Trustee Dorsey,
Yes.
Trustee Daggett.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. When we come back into open session, we'll just dismiss direct from open session, so no discussion. You are welcome to hang around, but if you don't, please have a good night. Please